Hello YouTube, my name is Michael, I am 29 years old and I want to share with you my fitness journey from being fairly fit to getting really fat to then getting back to being fairly fit again. And I want to share with you my journey so far and what my goals are ahead. Now, it goes without saying, I am a total amateur at this whole YouTube thing. I want to try and make this video fairly short and sweet, talk to the camera a little bit, share some photos, which I'll use my girlfriend's phone to go over my old photos and talk through them and show you my journey so far, what I've done well, what I've done poorly, and I want to share with you my goal going forward, which is to get into the best shape of my life by the time I turn 30, which is exactly 48 weeks away from today. I've made myself a goal to essentially get absolutely shredded by the time I turn 30, and I want my 30s to be much better than my 20s because it's fair to say I've wasted a little bit of my 20s by being overweight. It's held me back in many ways when it comes to career, when it comes to confidence levels, and I think my journey so far has been pretty interesting and I just want to share it with you simply to keep accountable. I want to publish my journey because I think when you make it public, you are a lot more likely to stick to it. You've got people, they don't probably care about you. I totally get that. However, it's out there and it makes me a lot more likely to stick to my goals. So it's a bit of a life story, which I apologize for, but a bit of background won't hurt anybody. So I will start with myself at about 9 years old. So this was me at 9. I believe this was on holiday in Marseille. As you can see the photo somewhere on the screen. 9 years old, fairly fuming. I think I am from Poland, so maybe this was me very happy. This is just a happy face. I'm pretty sure I was rather annoyed at my sister for not wanting to come and play in the water with me. And as you can see, again, I will never want to blame genetics on me getting out of shape, but looking at my body here, I don't think I've been blessed with anything spectacular. You could see some love handles, the spare tire was kind of coming out there already, and pretty long arms actually, my arms are pretty long. Anyway, not the best shape. I mean, wasn't an unhealthy 9-year-old, but nothing crazy here. So I don't want to fast forward a couple of years. This photo here is me at 14/15 years old. I was crazy into football at that stage. I played football about 4 or 5 times a week, training matches for club and school team. I love football and I did actually start lifting weights a little bit here, very sporadically. I mean, all I did was probably bench press and bicep curls. Actually, if I remember correctly, I could actually bench 80 or 90 kilos at that stage already, which was pretty impressive. I don't think you'd be able to tell by my build, but I've always had a bit of a gift for strength, especially in my early days. But I was around 75 kilograms here at that stage. Again, I'm a 14, 15 years old, still probably not fully hit puberty yet, so I can't expect to look shredded and massive at that age. However, again, I've got a 17-year-old nephew, 16-year-old nephew who is, I believe, genetically gifted, and he looks insane at his age. Again, I look nothing like that, but it wasn't bad. I mean, I could have, stuck to it, made some great progress from here, but the journey gets worse. So this photo here is fast forward a couple of years, maybe 3 or 4 years. This was me at 17 or 18 years old. I believe I was around 88 kilograms at that stage. You can see the fat was piling on, and I mean, the backstory to this is I quit football at around 16, which was today, to be honest, one of my biggest regrets. Don't want to get into that too much, but you can't go back and change things anyway. But I quit football at 16. I then got my driving license at 17. I got my first serious girlfriend at 18. All these little things added to me having less movement, more sort of, autonomy, driving everywhere, not walking, not running for the bus or something. Again, being 17, 18, getting a girlfriend, that's when sort of takeaways started happening. A lot of snacking, movie nights, you name it, ice cream, and the weight very quickly piled on. So I went from like being 75, 77, 78 between the age of like 15 to sort of 16, 17. And then by the time I reached 18, I was around 88 kilograms at that stage here. And again, you can see a very common theme here is the love handles that stick out the most. But I suppose you could potentially call this shape skinny fat. Again, this was not too bad. I could have easily turned around there and made a big change, and I wanted to, don't get me wrong. I knew I was getting fat, but for some reason it wasn't sort of tragic enough for me to do something about it. I sort of thought to myself, oh, I've got plenty of time, I'm young, I'll do something about it. And I was going to the gym. I was already sort of starting to work out. Nothing spectacular. I'd maybe go, 3 or 4 times in a week for 2 to 3 months and then stop. But at the same time, my diet was pretty tragic. I mean, I had no clue what macros were, I had no clue what to eat. I just sort of ate what I wanted and perhaps tried to outtrain a bad diet in little spurts of energy. But yeah, that's when things started to go wrong slowly, and it's not the worst yet. So next photo is fast forward to July 2019, which was me at about 22 years old. So again, a couple of years have passed since the last photo. Again, still very inconsistent in the gym. Just, in my relationship, happy, living life, uni life, drinking a little bit, nothing spectacular, but I was, going out, drinking, eating poorly. The drinking wasn't the problem, it was the eating. My sort of relationship with food became pretty poor at that stage, and it's been a couple of years of just, eating a bit of gym here and there, but nothing spectacular, nothing consistent, and nothing great. And this was again 22 years old, and from what I can see in my notes here, I was 105 kilograms. However, this is here where I did join a better gym. I sort of got into a better circle of friends who were more active, who were into the gym. So that's probably the stage where my consistency in the gym actually began, where I started taking lifting a lot more seriously. However, my diet was still very poor. And again, this is still not my worst shape. I was 105 kilograms and it will get worse from this. So I'll fast forward again. This was August/September 2020. So this was actually after the very first COVID lockdown back in 2020. And this is my very worst state ever. I mean, this was me at just under 120 kilograms. I think I actually hit 120. I don't even know if I weighed myself at my worst state, but this was essentially, actually, this was September 2020 when the gyms in Scotland have opened for the first time after about 6 months. And like I said previously in the previous photo, I started being a lot more consistent in the gym. However, when the gyms closed, and again, I think it was about 6 months with no access to gyms or no access to sort of any, everything was closed. And my relationship with food was atrocious. Takeaways left, right and center. I mean, desserts. I've got a massive sweet tooth, which meant that I just piled on the weight. And again, going back to earlier on, speaking about genetics slightly, I've got a gift for gaining weight. If it comes to gaining weight, I can just eat. I've got a massive appetite. I mean, I'm only about 5'9" height-wise, but I can eat. So 6 months of no movement, I went from 105 to 106 to 107, and then by the time I knew it, I was 120 kilograms. And to be honest, this was my turning point. I looked in the mirror. I was 23 years old. I mean, this is not what a 23-year-old should look like. I mean, this is not what anyone should look like, really, in my opinion. But separate topic. Very overweight. I mean, this is obese and very unhappy. Very not depressed. I was just super unhappy, and I knew I needed some immediate action to make myself better. So fast forward, not even fast forward, just a slight forward to February 2021, which was about 6 to 7 months after that previous photo, and I got down to just about 99 kilograms body weight. So over 20 kilograms of weight loss in about 6 to 7 months, which was obviously amazing progress, and I was very happy. I mean, I made all the right changes. Finally my diet was on point, counting macros, and this was my main journey, was about counting macros, making sure I get enough protein, hitting the gym consistently, even twice a day at some stages. Very motivated, obviously. Nowadays I know that motivation is important, but the most important thing is about being disciplined and consistent. So this is where, again, things changed for the better. I started being very consistent in the gym. I started being very good with my diet. I mean, I learned so much simply taking advice off of YouTube, learning some basic recipes, cooking, weighing out my food, and just being very consistent. And the good thing is about when you're that big, it doesn't take a lot to lose the weight. I made some small changes. What I did was, for example, rather than having burgers from McDonald's, I would make my own homemade burgers. And now suddenly you've got a burger that's not 700 calories, maybe 400, high in protein, it's more whole foods. And it started with small changes, which later down the line, it sort of spiraled into, a totally different lifestyle. And again, this is the key in my opinion. I think you need to make a lifestyle change, and that's exactly what I did. So things were going well, and again, I've never went back to sort of the 120 kilogram mark again. That was the turning point. However, I did have a slight setback, which if you fast forward from February 2021 to May 2021, I think I took it a bit too far. I was extremely active. I was playing football, 5-a-side football, not back to any 11-side stuff. I was playing football, 5-a-side. I was doing cardio in the morning at the gym. I was doing weights 5 days a week, push-pull legs, push-pull, legs once a week at that stage only. Lifting pretty heavy compounds, squats, deadlifts, doing a lot of cardio. I believe I cut my calories a fair bit as well, and just going a bit too crazy, not even realizing how important recovery is for sort of muscle gain and just progress in general. And I ruptured my Achilles tendon playing 5-a-side football, and again, that was a pretty big blow. I was doing so well. I believe between February 2021 and May 2021, I did sort of maintain my weight. There was no further drops in, I lost my 20 kilograms from September the year before to February, and then I sort of unplanned, but maintained my weight a little bit, sort of gave my body a break. Whether that was intentional or not, I'll let you decide, but it was a good break. I mean, I was enjoying my training, I was enjoying life a little bit, because I will tell you this, I felt amazing. Having lost 20 kilograms already, I felt like a new man. I knew there was more work to do, don't get me wrong, but again, consistent in the gym, just took it a bit too far and got this injury. So this injury put me out of action for around 4 months. Essentially, I was in that boot from the previous photo, and I was in that boot for about 4 months with very little movement. Sadly, the NHS in Scotland where I live did not allow me to have surgery, so I essentially had to let my Achilles heal on its own, which it did, to be fair. However, again, very little movement, no gym, and I picked up my old habits from eating horribly. It was just so easy to, sit on the sofa. Well, I had to lie on the sofa, order some food, get some snacks, and like I said before, I'm a very easy gainer. The weight just came back on with a vengeance, and I went back to about 112 kilograms. So I lost 20, 21, I regained about 12 to 14 kilos in that stage, which again, 4 months out of action, 12, 13 kilograms weight. I mean, some people would kill to bulk like that. Obviously, this was not a bulk, this was just me getting fat again. And it was disheartening, I mean, I've made all this progress, and again, I can only blame myself. I put that food in my mouth. I could have been more disciplined, but I perhaps wasn't fully ready for this new healthy lifestyle, so I piled that weight back on very quickly. So then moving on, when I eventually did pick myself back up, I eased myself back in the gym. I sort of learned to recover better. I learned to not go crazy, just listen to my body, train accordingly, fuel my body, drink plenty, and not take it too far. I still did my cardio, I still did my weights, but I also learned to prioritize recovery. And if you go, again, this is fast forward a year later, in October 2022, I reached about 95 kilograms at this stage. Again, felt great to bounce back. It sort of took me, I believe it took me, if I was out from May till about September, October, it took me a year to kind of get back that 14, 15 kilos loss again. So it could have been done quicker, but like I said, I learned my lesson. I didn't go too crazy. I also started to enjoy life a bit more, and again, started to sort of get into a decent shape and slowly heading in the right direction. So then fast forward another year, this was October 2023, I reached my lowest weight in, I don't know, 8-9 years at that point. So I've not been that weight. October 23, I would have been 26 years old. So this was my lowest weight in like 8-9 years. Again, slower progress in terms of weight loss. There is a year between those two photos. However, at this stage, I did spend some time actually building some strength and muscle in the gym. I wasn't necessarily fully bulking, but I maybe ate more at maintenance level, sort of main gained if you like. My progress in the gym was pretty fantastic. I was getting some strength, and it was also time to maybe slowly enjoy some life. Like I said, at this stage I'd already lost, this is about a 32 kilogram weight loss from my heaviest ever weight, so my confidence levels came back. I felt like a totally different man, and between training hard, enjoying the gym, I also tried to enjoy life a bit more outgoing, holidays, and again, it's a bit slower progress, but kind of intentional. This is the same day, just a different pose. You can kind of see the abs coming here, a bit of loose skin. I mean, this is perhaps a separate topic for another video. I think when you get as big as I was at my heaviest and you lose that weight, the loose skin is sadly inevitable. However, you are much better having loose skin than being overweight. So yeah, things started looking good, and to be honest, the majority of my fitness and fat loss journey happened in that sort of first 3 years between September 2020 to October 2023. And again, this photo here, this was me sort of October 23, 24. Sorry, October 23. So 3 years to kind of lose the bulk of my weight. And then essentially from October 2023 to now, I've sort of bounced back between like the 88 kilo mark to like 98 again, but a lot of that was intentional. It was, you know, gaining muscle in the gym, getting some strength. I mean, I got to some pretty decent levels in terms of, you know, lifting on benching and deadlifting, squatting, just gaining some more muscle, some strength, some confidence. And yeah, so that's the bulk of my journey in terms of weight loss. Again, I have built a fair bit of muscle. As I speak to you today, I weighed in myself this morning. I was 87.3 kilos, which is again like an all-time low weight since my journey began. However, this is me probably the most muscle mass I've ever had, the strongest I've ever been, so it's a fairly slow journey overall. However, again, a fair few ups and downs, some intentional weight gain to get the muscles and strength back, and other times where I simply got disadvantaged by injury. Now, going forward, I will turn 30 years old in 48 weeks today, and I've sort of set myself a goal to get in the best shape of my life by the time I turn 30. What I've been doing is I've been posting sort of like a weekly check-in video of me weighing myself, sort of not going into too much detail, but it's a very vague statement to make. I want to get into the best shape of my life. Essentially, I just want to get shredded. I want to get to below the 80 kilo. I want to see abs for the first time ever in my life. And I just want my 30s to be better than my 20s, because like I said, spending the first couple of years of my 20s where some people argue are your best years, when I was severely out of shape, I missed out on a lot simply because I did not want to be seen. I mean, if we go back in high school, I was fairly athletic, I was fairly confident, very outgoing, and then when I got fat, it was almost like embarrassing for me to be seen in that way, and therefore I have missed out on a lot of social events. Again, no one to blame but myself. And yeah, to be honest, this journey has been pretty wild. I have learned a lot. Obviously, if I could go back, I would never want to get fat, but it took me to where I am today in life. I'm overall very happy in life, so, you know, it was maybe meant to be. I don't know how to look at this. However, the positive side is I have learned a lot. You know, I've learned a lot about fitness, I've learned a lot about dieting, nutrition, sort of recovery, and it's sort of turned into a passion. You know, now I love going to the gym. It's literally part of my daily routine, it's my lifestyle. I still enjoy food. I mean, I'll always love food. It's just more in a disciplined way nowadays. And yeah, I hope to see you again in my channel if you ever come back. And when I speak to you this time next year, I promise you that I will be in the best shape of my life, unless I have some freak accident, lose a leg or something. But anyway, thank you for watching. Apologies for the sort of amateur editing and my amateur talk. I am obviously not an expert at this, but yeah, hope to see you back. I'm gonna post maybe once a week, like a sort of short video of my progress, and if there's any interest, if you want any recipes, any sort of advice, please message me. I am more than happy to help. But yeah, like I said, this video and this sort of content is all about me sharing my journey, sharing what I do, and also keeping myself accountable, because to be honest with you, when you do make your fitness goals public, it does help in terms of not wanting to cheat on your diet. Like the amount of times I maybe thought to myself over the last few weeks, you know what, I fancy a little McDonald's, I fancy some Biscoff cheesecake, but I made my fitness goals public, so I need to stick to my word. Thank you.